Hello, everybody, and welcome to the American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. My name is Andy Frisky. I'm a senior dream curator here at DreamBank, and on behalf of our team, we are thrilled to have you with us. As we get started, we always like to learn where you're joining us from today and encourage you to share so in the chat function. And for those of you who aren't familiar, I'd love to take a moment and introduce you to DreamBank. So here at American Family Insurance, we believe communities are stronger and futures are brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. That's why we created DreamBank, an inspirational community destination and digital experience that is dedicated to dreamers everywhere. Our offerings are designed to help you celebrate the dream journey, overcome obstacles, and stay motivated. Today, we are hosting an event on how to select the right vehicle. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to our moderator, Katie Powell. Katie, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. And as Andy said, my name is Katie Powell, and I'm a product marketing consultant here at American Family Insurance. So today we'll be discussing the process of selecting the right vehicle and what you need to know about that process. Helping us in this discussion is American Family Insurance agent Jason Lassen and Zimbrick Nissan's new car manager, Joe Meinholz. So why don't we meet our two panelists? We'll start with Jason. Jason has been a successful entrepreneur for over 20 years and has been an American Family agent since 2014. In the short time since he began with American Family, he has catapulted into one of the 4 largest American Family agencies across the United States. But when asked what his greatest accomplishment is, Jason has only one answer, and that's his team, Team Leasing. Joe graduated from UW-Claire and began his career as a salesperson with Zimbrick Nissan. He recently transitioned into the new car manager at Zimbrick. Joe has been working in the car business for just over 10 years and brings a wealth of knowledge for new car buyers. So during our discussion today, we'll be discussing 3 main topics, which include setting your budget, finding the right type of car for you, and finally purchasing a vehicle. At any point during our conversation, if you have any questions, feel free to type those in the Q&A function within Zoom. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started with some questions? So my first question is actually for Joe. And Joe, this is really in regards to leasing a vehicle versus purchasing a vehicle. What are some of the pros and cons to leasing or purchasing a vehicle with a loan?
So there's a lot of pros and cons to both options. It really is going to come down to your lifestyle and where you're at. So when looking at purchasing, let's say, one of the cons might be you're going to have higher car payments unless you're going to put a large sum of money down. You are responsible for all the maintenance on that vehicle, especially after the warranty expires. So any repairs or anything from years, depending on the car, 4 through the time you sell it, you will be responsible for on that. Pros with that, though, are once you've paid that loan off, that car is yours. So you then also would have a time period of not having any car payments as well. When you look at the leasing aspect of it, you got to look at 1, 2 might be your budget. So a lot of times you can get into a brand new car every 3 years, and you're going to have some lower payments without having to put a large sum of money down. Now, the reverse side of that is going to be you're also going to have a car payment all the time. So as you continue to lease, you'll continue to have a car payment. But typically, most leases are anywhere from 2 years to 3 years long. A lot of them can range from 10,000 miles to 15,000 miles a year. Anything above that, so again, looking at your lifestyle, if you're going to be someone driving more miles, then the leasing option ends up costing you more in the long run, where it's not going to be as effective. But you will be covered under maintenance while you're in your lease for that time period. You're going to be covered under warranty in your lease for that time period as well. So a lot of peace of mind where you take your car in, you get it serviced, you leave, you don't have to worry about repairs or anything that you have to pay for out of pocket on that.
Great. And Jason, when it comes to insurance for leasing a vehicle or purchasing a vehicle with a loan, is there any difference as it relates to the car insurance aspect of it?
Sure. Great question. So Fortunately, there's no change at all in premium if there's a lien holder or a leaseholder listed on there. Customers would still want to let their insurance agent know that there's a loan or a lease on it, because the lien holder, the leaseholder, the bank will want to be listed on there as on the policy as a lien holder. So just need to let your agent know, but it won't affect the premium at all.
Great, thank you. We actually have a really relevant question coming in from our Q&A function. Again, if you have any questions throughout today, feel free to throw those in the Q&A. And this question comes from Michael. So Michael would like to know how they can get the best deal on a lease. And how do I know if I'm getting ripped off, basically? So Joe, maybe you'd be able to help answer Michael's question.
So when looking at leasing, I mean, right now is a really hard time, because depending where you are in the country, state, some places are actually charging over MSRP on vehicles, some aren't. That actually kind of can make leasing not effective if they're doing that, because it definitely changes how much you're going to pay over the time, because the residuals don't change with that. So the residual is basically the amount that the customer is going to pay for that car during a lease. So if a vehicle, let's say, has a 70% residual, that 70% is what the value of the car is at the end of the lease. The customer is responsible for the 30%. When you're looking at purchasing wise, a lot of manufacturers will show their lease specials online. Now the manufacturer sets a lease special. Not all dealers have to participate with that. Typically, those are the lowest lease payments and specials that you'll find. One of the other things to look at is, I know dealers will do things differently. So they'll desk a deal showing your payments, not including your taxes and fees. So make sure you ask that when you're looking at it, because you might all of a sudden sit there and look and see, okay, I put this down, my payment's $330 a month. And then you go in to sign for the paperwork and realize your payment's actually $390, because they were showing it without taxes and fees. So we don't do that way. It's nice to show exactly how you're doing that. So, but keep that in mind, because everyone does it differently. But that can also give you a sense of, man, did I just get ripped off here? I thought I agreed to $330 a month, and now I'm paying $390 a month without knowing that.
Great. That's a great tip. Make sure you're accounting for all of the line items, if you will. So awesome. My next two questions are actually for Joe as well. So this is really around, both questions are really around estimating my monthly payment and things of that nature. So my first question is, do I have to have a down payment in order to purchase a vehicle?
Most times you actually do not have to have a down payment to purchase a vehicle. So different things will come into play. Obviously, they'll be dependent on credit. And then also, if you have a trade-in or not. Let's say you have a trade-in and you might have negative equity. So where the vehicle's worth less than what you owe, then maybe a bank would require that. But overall, if you came in to actually just purchase or lease a vehicle right off the street, most times the bank does not require a down payment for that. So you can do true zero. It's called the sign and drive, true zero sign and drive on that.
Okay. And then a similar question, when it comes to estimating my monthly payment, what are some of the other expenses I should consider when it comes to owning a vehicle? So how do I estimate a monthly payment, and what are some other like maintenance type of expenses I should consider?
So when financing, you can basically figure roughly, if you're doing a 5-year loan, it's about $20 a month for every $1,000 you finance. So a $10,000 car would be roughly $200 a month. So when you figure in some of the other things, is you're always going to see what the sales price is, but also figure in your taxes. So, and that can vary too from where you're at. From some places are 5.5%. Some states and counties have 9% on cars. Most dealerships also have documentation fees, and those can range also from a couple $100 up to $1,000. And then you have your DMV fees. So those, basically your doc fee, your DMV fees, and your sales tax are things you should account for when you're looking at that.
Great. Another thing to account for, of course, is your automobile insurance. So Jason, what type of insurance coverage is required by state? And is that sufficient?
Sure. We run into this a lot. So we're in Wisconsin. We service quite a few different states, but I just want to use Wisconsin as an example. Liability insurance is what's required. And liability insurance is often misunderstood. That's the insurance that kicks in the event that you are at fault in an accident and you caused injury to somebody else, or you damage their vehicle, or you damage their property. So if you hurt somebody else or you wreck their stuff, then you're going to rely on your liability insurance to hopefully pay out for that. The state minimums in many states, and in Wisconsin, for instance, is denoted as three separate numbers. So it's 25, 50, 10, and those equate to thousands. And what that means is it's $25,000 per person in the other vehicle. The 50,000 is a cap on no matter how many people you injure, they're going to cap it at 50,000. And then the 10,000 is for property damage. So the way that I look at it personally, and I'm sure Joe can attest to this, especially in this market, there's a lot of cars on the road nowadays that are worth more than $10,000. And if you are deemed at fault in an accident and you have the state minimums of 25, 50, 10, that means that the most your insurance company would pay out for somebody else's wrecked vehicle is only $10,000. You then are personally responsible for the remainder of it. So if they have a $30,000 vehicle that you totaled, the insurance company would write a check potentially for up to $10,000, and then you would be responsible for the remainder, which would be $20,000 in this case. If you don't have the money to just write a check, which most of us don't, then you could potentially have your wages garnished, have a lawsuit against you, things like that. So it's pretty scary. So in my personal and professional opinion, you should most definitely cover more than the state required minimum for liability insurance. Many of our customers have 250, 500, 100, which in the case for property damage would be 100,000, which is much more sufficient.
Great, thank you. Jason, another follow-up question for that. So we talk about in Wisconsin, the state minimum being $10,000 for property damage, and one recommendation is 100,000. So, that it's 10 times more value. Does that mean it's 10 times more in price as well?
You would think, but if you find a good agent, no, most agents, it won't be anywhere close to 10 times as much. In fact, oftentimes, it'll be significantly less than what you expect it to be. You'll definitely pay a little bit more, but nothing crazy.
Great. Thank you, Jason. So we have a couple of questions in the Q&A. So thank you for sending those over. We'll be sure to get to all of them as we can. I did want to group a couple of the questions together. Nick is asking, when will the shortage of new car availability be over? I think we're all asking that question, right? That's a great question. Obviously, none of us have a crystal ball, but Joe, I'd love to understand your perspective of the shortage. And, we hear about the chip, we hear about many other things. So any thoughts on the shortage so we can stop paying premiums for some of these cars?
So the shortage itself, it does not look like there is any end in sight in the near future. So, and it's not just the chips, it's along with the shipping that's going on. You're starting to see other parts like hitches and wiring for trucks, spray-on bed liner material, all having shortages right now. I know some of the vehicles that had heads-up displays and stuff in them are not going to be getting those in the future for at least a few months until they catch up with production on that. I would look at it as no manufacturer is ever going to say anything about, we can't tell the future because they don't know either. Who knows what happens if another COVID strain comes and shuts anything down. But a lot of these manufacturers are actually, and Nissan just started doing this, going to 18-month leases now available as well. And when I see that, I'm starting to think that, and they're typically have been on most cases better payment options than the 36 months. It leads me to believe that they're thinking that this could possibly go another 12 to 18 months where they're putting their cars into that range. So my personal opinion, I'd say you're probably looking through for sure the end of 2022, if not the beginning of 23.
So with that being said, for those of us that currently have vehicles, Megan has a great question on preserving your vehicle. What is something that you can do to not only preserve your vehicle, but also the value of your vehicle?
So one, don't smoke in it. Smoking in vehicles definitely drives down the value, but preserving your vehicles, just take care of it, do the right things, make sure that you do all your maintenance on it when it's supposed to be done, get your oil changes done. It's gonna at least make sure your vehicle lasts the longest. Also is gonna help with the trade value as you go along. It's tough to stay too right now. You're seeing record high used car values and trade-in values right now due to the pandemic. That will also adjust when obviously new car shortages stop and there's a correction on it. But yeah, that'd be my advice going forward. If you're getting rid of your vehicle, do whatever you can to keep it the cleanest, take care of it, and keep up on it. Accidents can cause stuff as well. So as Jason would know, a lot of times getting your vehicle fixed if there's major damage, even right now, is probably a better option than not doing that. So for instance, we had someone that had a transmission out on a vehicle. It was a $4,500 fix. Without that, their car, it was an older car, was worth $2,000. After it was fixed, it was worth $9,000. So, but that's considered warranty work.
Little car equity there, so that's great.
So spending, yeah, it just depends where you're at. And before the pandemic, if that was the opposite way around, and let's say they'd give you $2,000 for your vehicle when it's got a $4,500 fix, and it might have only been worth $4,000 at the time, then you're better off to just get rid of it because there's no point of you putting the extra money into it when the value isn't there. But when it goes the other way, so it's just stuff to look at and kind of research.
Great. So while we're talking about new cars, used cars, shortages, things of that nature, Joe, can you talk about the benefits of buying a new vehicle versus a used vehicle?
So new vehicles, you're typically going to get a lower interest rate on those. So a lot of manufacturers have special APRs. Jason will be able to probably touch base on this in a bit, but a lot of times I think there's been customers I know that have been surprised to see lower premiums depending on the vehicle, because some newer vehicles have more safety features on them than if you're buying an older or used vehicle. You're also looking right now, again, as we talked, the used car market is at a much higher demand as well as pricing as it was. So where it used to be maybe 10 grand difference between a new and a used car, that's maybe 2 to 3 years different and year from each other, is now 2 to 3 grand difference. The problem is you might not be able to find the new car you want due to the shortage out there. So it depends what you're open to.
Very good. So Jason, with all that being said, insurance, certainly goes into that, the used versus new type of conversation. But then also whenever it comes to a new vehicle, you're typically taking out a loan. Used vehicles, oftentimes you're taking out a loan, but do you always have to have comprehensive and collision coverage? And what are some of the components of comprehensive and collision coverage? I've also heard it be called like full coverage. So if you could walk us through that, that'd be great.
Sure. There's a lot to unpack there. So I'm going to go one by one. A common misconception is that there's not actually a real coverage called full coverage. So full coverage is typically considered both comprehensive and collision coverage. Collision coverage is just like the name implies. It's if you collide with, another vehicle, a stationary object, something like that. And then comprehensive coverage is also sometimes called other than collision. So it kind of picks up everything else. Oftentimes, a comprehensive claim is something like hail damage, or in our area, hit a deer, things like that. The insurance company in no way requires comprehensive or collision or full coverage, but the place that typically requires full coverage is going to be your lender. So the bank or credit union that you get a loan from, or the leasing company that you lease from, and they simply want to make sure that their collateral, your vehicle, is going to be paid for if it's in an accident, you hit a deer, something like that. So the lender almost always will require that you have both comprehensive and collision insurance, and your agent is going to be happy to help out in whichever way they can.
Alrighty.
Did I answer all the questions there?
You did. I do have
Okay.
a follow-up question for you though. So comprehensive and collision, that oftentimes has a deductible. Can you help us understand what a deductible is? What are some of the benefits of having a high deductible versus a low deductible?
So the word deductible is thrown around a lot in the insurance world, but there's a lot of people that don't really know what it means. And it's simply the amount that you are willing to pay whenever you have a claim. So a common deductible in our area in Wisconsin, the Midwest, is $500. So with that example, that just means that if you have a covered claim, you would pay the first $500 of damage, and then the insurance company would pay the rest up to the approved amount. And the more risk that you are willing to take on, the lower your premium is. And if you want to take on less of a risk, maybe you want to have a 250 or 100 or even a zero deductible, that means less money out of your pocket, but more money out of the insurance company's pocket. So therefore, you're going to pay a little higher premium to your insurance company every month. Got
it. That makes perfect sense. So if I want to have a more predictable understanding of my monthly costs, then maybe a lower deductible is an option for me if I don't want some of those scares of like, oh, I have to pay $500 suddenly.
Absolutely. And the way that I figure it out, here's a little bonus answer for a question you didn't ask. So I'm a numbers guy. I'm not like Rain Man, more like Mist Man, but there's a lot of numbers floating in my head. So let's just say that you checked and it's going to be an extra $10 a month if you raise your deductible, maybe from $500 to $1,000. Well, that means at the time of an accident, it's going to cost you an extra $500 out of your pocket, right? So then what I do, just to figure out if the risk is worth it for me personally or not, is I take that $500 and you can divide it by the amount that you're saving each month. In this case, it was $10. And that would be roughly about 4 years. It'd be 50 months. 4 years would be 48 months. So that tells me that I need to go 4 years without an accident. That would be the break-even point if I'm going to increase my deductible. And if I have a claim that I have to pay out $1,000 instead of the $500 in the next 4 years, then I lost on that risk that I took. And if I can go more than 4 years being claim free, I'll have a happy insurance agent, but also I'll have a little extra money overall in my pocket.
Love that. I love that analogy. That's a very simple way for us to understand the cost benefit analysis on that one. So thank you for the bonus answer. I appreciate that. So Joe, when it comes to car warranties, does a new vehicle that comes with a car warranty, but do used vehicles come with car warranties as well? And what are some of the things that are covered within a warranty?
So when it comes to car warranties, there's two main different kinds. You have your bumper to bumper and you have your powertrain. So it's pretty standard across most manufacturers. It's a 3-year 36 on bumper to bumper. Some have higher, some do a 5-year 60 on that. And then 5-year 60 on the powertrain. So new car coverage that comes with it. When you're looking at a used car, when you buy one of those, you will get the remainder of the factory warranty from when it was originally sold. So let's say you bought a 3-year-old car that had 23,000 miles. Well, the bumper to bumper is still gone, even though it's under 36,000 miles, because that 3-year time frame has lapsed. But you would have the remainder of the 5-year 60,000 mile on the powertrain warranty. So you'd have about 2 years in that 40,000 miles. Now, when you're looking at the difference of a certified pre-owned versus just a pre-owned, certified typically extends the manufacturer warranty on the powertrain 2 extra years and out to 100,000 miles on the odometer. So that's one of the main advantages on a certified, as well as it has to meet certain standards. So tires, brakes, it goes through 100, a lot of them go through 170 plus point inspection, and that all has to be checked off. So like if a car came in here and we want to certify it, but let's say the tires are at 4 millimeters, for us to be able to do that, we have to replace the tires before we could put it on the lot as a certified car, because it doesn't meet that specification. But it will have that warranty extension. And then there's options as well to purchase extended warranties, and those can go out from powertrain or bumper to bumper.
Great. And that's great to know, especially about the certified pre-owned versus a used vehicle. That's something that, you know, we haven't touched on yet. So whenever we're thinking about the condition of a vehicle, a new vehicle, it's going to be new, right? And then we have a certified pre-owned is kind of our next step down. Is that right? And then used would be after that?
Correct. I put it in that category. You can find used vehicles that aren't certified that are exceptionally nice too. It just depends on who traded it in, how it was traded in, and obviously who took care of it. But there are certain used vehicles, I mean, that they don't have to do that. If it's just a used vehicle, if it has low tire tread or low brakes, they can just put it on the lot that way and sell it that way with it, versus a certified has to pass that inspection to do so.
Great. Okay, great. That makes sense. So, Jason, when it comes to discounts, whenever I'm purchasing car insurance, what are some of the discounts that I should consider for my car insurance that I might be eligible for?
Sure. So this is a great example of why it can often benefit you to work with a local agent rather than an automated system or a website. But there's different methods out there for everybody that wants to buy insurance any way they want. Each company and even policies within the same company can offer different discounts depending on the type of vehicle that you're buying and the type of family that you have, if there are children on there or if you have more than one vehicle. And American Family has different policy types. So the discounts that I'm telling about may not apply to your specific policy if you're an American Family policyholder, but it's a good reason for you to have a conversation with your agent, whether you're with American Family or anyone else. One of the most common types of discounts is a bundle discount. And I think we've heard a lot about that being advertised over the last several years. But for instance, if you own a home and you have homeowners insurance, along with your auto insurance at the same company, there's a really good chance that they're going to offer a home and auto bundle discount. Or if you rent and you have renter's insurance, you can still have a renter's and auto bundle discount. You can have a liability umbrella or a life insurance policy or different types of policies, and you may still qualify for a bundle discount with your insurance company. And then, of course, there's also a fairly well-known discount called the multi-vehicle policy. So many insurance companies offer an additional discount if you have more than one vehicle insured with them. And some companies, American Family, for instance, on some of their policy types, they even offer a UW discount. So if you are an alumni or faculty member with University of Wisconsin in Madison, you can even get a discount for that. And then I talked about depending on your family types. So we were just talking before before we started the webinar amongst the panelists that I just added on my 16-year-old son as a driver on our policy. Now I know what all of the attendees are thinking, man, how old is this guy? Well, don't worry. We've already determined that I am by far the oldest panelist of everyone on the call. So just really old is the answer. But with adding on a 16-year-old driver, there are discounts on the type of policy that I have, where if he maintains a 3.0 GPA or better, he can get a good student discount. And then there's also a young volunteer discount. And there's even a usage-based discount that our specific policy type offers. So the safer drivers that our family members are, the lower our rates are going to be.
Great. So multi-vehicle discount, that's something that makes everyone happy. Joe's happy with that because we're buying more cars. Jason's happy because we're insuring more cars. So that's great. Thank you for that, Jason.
Think of it that way.
It's good.
So I do want to hop over into the Q&A, and just again, as a reminder, we do have the Q&A open. If you have any questions, feel free to throw those in there. We've got a couple of questions, one from Michael, asking about purchasing directly from a manufacturer when it comes to purchasing a car, or do you have to purchase through a car dealer if you want a brand new vehicle?
So right now you still go through a dealer. There is no manufacturer straight purchase. There is Ford, I think, tried something with the Mustang where you could purchase directly from the manufacturer, but it still goes through the dealership that you go to pick it up and do everything with that. Online buying is a huge thing that's taking over now. Obviously, there's the Carvanas of the world out there. I'm at a Nissan store. Them themselves have a new buy at home program, and it is different from state to state. So you can click on our website, click buy it now. It'll take you through payments. You can actually put your trade-in in there, and it gives you a series of questions to go through to give you values on that. So you can actually get all the way to the end process of knowing what your trade-in is, what your payment is, what your car is. But at the end, you'd still, at least in the state of Wisconsin, we'd have you come in here, you'd sign the paperwork, take your car home. So one of the benefits of still getting it from a dealer is also going to be the setup portion of that. So manufacturers, or I don't know what Carvana does when they do that. They might have delivery specialists, but when you come pick up your car too, there's someone there to do a complete rundown and setup of all the features of your vehicle.
Great. So Joe, we'll stick with you for our next question. What are the benefits of trading in a vehicle to the dealership, if I currently have a vehicle, instead of selling it myself?
So the main benefit is, depending on what type of person you are, you don't have to deal with other people if you don't want to. So when you're selling it yourself, you just got to be aware of what you're selling. For one, whether you have a damaged vehicle, anything, you do have to disclose that to whoever's buying it. You don't, obviously that person, if let's say you sold it to, and 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, that person knows who you are and who they bought it from, their transmission goes out. So you don't have to deal or funnel with phone calls like that are coming back towards you on that. One of the benefits too, when you're trading in a vehicle, is you actually get a tax benefit on the vehicle you're buying. So if you're buying a $20,000 car, let's say, and your trade-in's worth $10,000, you're only paying tax on the $10,000 remaining balance of that, because your car will come off of that price before the taxes go in. So that too, I always tell people when they are getting, if they're in here getting a trade value from me, I'll show them what their tax benefit is. So they know at the bare minimum, they should try to sell it above that if they do sell it on their own, not to, cut themselves out of the tax benefit of savings on that as well.
That's a great thing to consider as well, that tax savings, which I know I did not know about that. So thank you for sharing that. that's really good information to have in your pocket. And like you said, it's a little less hassle too, right? Like I can just drive up to the dealership and hand them the keys and be done with it.
You don't have to have your car cleaned. You don't have to have whatever. You can be done with it. And then from there, the dealership deals with it. So
great. Thank you, Joe. So Jason, I want to revisit kind of the discount conversation we were having earlier. You had talked about usage-based insurance. So a lot of us, especially since the pandemic, have reduced our driving, some significantly, some just have reduced it in general. So are there any discounts or other benefits of lower mileage drivers that you could discuss?
Sure. So when you are setting up insurance for your vehicle or vehicles, oftentimes your agent will ask approximately how many miles per year you drive each vehicle. And typically with most insurance companies and most policy types, the fewer miles that you drive each year, the less your premium is going to be. And many companies now have this usage-based insurance where with some of the higher tech companies, it's simply just an app that's on your phone. Sometimes it's a little device that you plug into the vehicle and such. But for instance, with some American family policies, they may be eligible for usage-based insurance. And it's simply an app a free app that you download on your phone. And it quietly in the background just tracks your driving and different driving habits, also how frequently you drive and how many miles you drive. And that will generate sometimes a pretty hefty discount for you.
Great. That's very good to know.
Does it also figure out if you're looking at your phone while you're driving?
It's a pretty smart app. It's a pretty smart app.
Well, thank you, Jason, for that. I know a lot of people have even sold vehicles, simply because they're not driving near as much. So thanks for just walking us through that usage-based insurance example. So Joe, wanting to go back to you when it comes to used cars. So if I buy a used car or I'm planning on it, should I have a mechanic look at it if I'm not super handy? Because I'm certainly not. Or should I have a mechanic look at it? Should I run Carfax reports? What are some of the things that I can do to prevent getting, a bad deal in regards to the maintenance and repairs on it?
So most dealers actually will provide you Carfax reports. Like ours are even all online. A lot of times if you ask, they can print one out for you. If for any reason somebody says, no, I will not print one out for you, because dealers have pretty widespread access to Carfax, that might be a sign that, hey, maybe there is something wrong with this car, or there's an accident they don't want me to know about, things like that. And when you're looking at Carfaxes too, look at, just because a car might have had an accident doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad car. Carfax will actually list the severity of the accident, whether it was minor, moderate. The ones you want to stay away from are the ones that are severe with frame damage reporting. So that itself, you might not notice that, but I know that can happen. If you buy a car with frame damage, and let's say you paid the same amount for one without it, when you went to trade that in, that car is probably worth 60 to 70% less than a car without frame damage. So that's kind of the main thing. You want to stay away from those types of cars. You can take it to your own mechanic if you know a mechanic. We let people do that all the time if they want to. Like I said, here most of ours are certified, so they go through that. But every once in a while, you'll get somebody that still wants to do that. Perfectly fine. Again, if somebody throws a stink about it, maybe that's another sign that, hey, why would they want me to look at this car? So just things like that. Obviously, just be smart and find someone that you enjoy dealing with and makes you feel like you're making a safe, sound decision and answers your questions for you as you go along with it as well.
Jason, when it comes to like the Carfax reports and things of that nature, Is there any impact to insurance premium if the vehicle previously has been in an accident?
Great question. There's typically not any change to the premium that you pay. However, depending on the company and the policy type and what type of damage there is, if it has a salvage title, there may be a difference in the actual cash value of the vehicle. Therefore, if the vehicle is totaled in a claim, because the actual cash value of the vehicle is reduced, you bought it for less, therefore it's worth less, you may get a lesser payout than if it were not a salvaged vehicle title.
Got it. So if I purchase a salvaged vehicle, what it's worth on Kelley Blue Book isn't necessarily true, is what I'm hearing you say.
Right, which is why you're buying it for typically significantly less than what the Blue Book price is, and when there's a claim, you'll get the actual cash value.
Sure, makes sense. Great, thank you. I want to go back to the chat and answer a question from Patty. So Patty has a question in regards to dealer costs. Is there a way to understand like what the dealer pays for a vehicle to help her better understand like negotiations and how much she could potentially negotiate on a vehicle?
Sure. So a lot of stuff you can actually find online right now. I mean, the internet has so much stuff on it. When you're looking used cars, it's a little tougher to figure out what you paid because cars all bring different values depending on whether they're nicer, they're not, ones that aren't as nice, Carfax's, accidents, stuff like that. But for new, there's always an invoice. Most dealers don't care to show you that. They'll show you that if you ask. An invoice and then minus a holdback, they call it. And a holdback is basically the difference between the true cost of the car and what the invoice is that the manufacturer invoiced the dealer. Now that also is factored into how long a dealer has that car on the lot, because when a dealership purchases the car from the manufacturer, those cars are all financed. A lot of people don't know that the owner doesn't just have the cash to, put, like Tom Zimbrick here would be 17 stores. I don't know what the floor is, but most people don't have $50 million to be writing checks every year for cars. So they're financed, and those vehicles get charged the longer they're on the lot. So you'll see that too on times that vehicles that have been on the lot longer might have a bigger discount on them than a vehicle that's newer or fresh, because they're more incentivized to get rid of that car because it's costing them money the longer it's on the lot.
Great, good to know. While we're in the Q&A, why don't we answer another question there? So we've got Marla asked a great question in regards to getting a lease on a certified used car. So can you lease vehicles that are not new?
You can. I do not have experience in that because we have not done that ever here. There are certain dealerships across the United States that will lease used cars. It's kind of that same reference to when you lease it new, except it's going to be a bank that's leasing that car. So the bank is going to determine the value of that car, whether it's 2 or 3 years down the road, and that's going to figure on what you pay. So you can lease used cars. Again, I don't have much experience in people doing that though. Okay,
good to know. Jason, a question for you in regards to like after I've narrowed down my car search, when should I get a quote on the vehicle that I'm considering?
So I'm a planner, and I would prefer to get a quote before I sign any papers, for sure. Now, it's not necessary. You can simply call your agent or go to the online portal and just add the car like that, and it's no problem. But I don't like surprises. So that's why I prefer that, if we're going to add anything, I will run it through and just get a quote first. And you may be buying a similar vehicle to what you have right now. Maybe you have a 2020 Nissan and you're buying an additional 2021 because there's a new driver and cars are switching around or things like that. And you may expect, for good reason, that your premium on the new vehicle is going to be very similar to the slightly used vehicle. And normally you're right on. However, there may be special circumstances. For instance, if you're adding an additional driver, like in my case, I could have a pretty big impact to my rates adding a third car, because I'm also adding a third driver at the same time. Or if you are changing the number of vehicles that you have in your household, there may be different rating factors depending on the types of drivers that you have in your house, where drivers get assigned ratings to certain vehicles that may have an unforeseen impact on your rates. So bottom line, it's a good idea. It's not required.
Good to know. Yeah,
I agree with.
Go ahead, Joe.
Add on to that, I agree with Jason on that too. I've seen it happen before. It's not a fun experience when you're excited, you're buying a new car and you might not even have insurance or have had insurance. And then all of a sudden you call and you don't realize, oh man, it's going to be this much more. And now I'm stretching my budget out, or maybe I can't afford this car anymore. So it's best to get that done beforehand, so you have that factored in your budget, so then you know to what car you're on and what car you're looking at.
Good, great to know. So let's jump back into the Q&A here. I want to make sure we answer as many questions as we can from the audience. So Steve has a question related to used vehicles. So are vehicles that are used typically a better buy? Okay, here I'm rereading this question. So he's asking if a previously used or leased vehicle or a rental car vehicle, is that typically a better buy than a vehicle that was owned by a private individual?
No, I wouldn't say that for certain. So private individual, when you say like a private individual, like just somebody that bought one car versus a lease.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, it's going to be do your research, actually go see and touch the car is what I would recommend people do, because we've had cars that are 10 years old come in that look nicer than cars that are 3 years old that come in. It really depends on how that car was treated over its time that it spent. Rental cars, those two, you got to touch and feel. Some of them come in and they've been smoked in and might have holes in the seats. Others can be very nice. So I'd say the rental vehicles are a little more of a crapshoot in terms of you don't know, because so many people have been in that car, you don't know how it was exactly treated. Versus a lease or a privately owned vehicle, typically a lease will have one owner, privately owned might only have 1 to 2. So
yeah, good to consider. Would a buyer know if something was a previously used as a rental vehicle? Is that stated anywhere?
Carfax will state it.
Okay.
So every Carfax polls, it'll say either whether it was a rental, commercial, fleet, lease, or private.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Joe has a great question. When is the best time to buy a new car?
So again, right now with the shortage, it's just tough. I've been telling my customers, if you find the car, go get it as soon as possible, because a lot of times there's 10 other people looking for that exact same car. A lot of these coming in that we have been pre-sold for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks out. So it's just the customer waiting for them to show up on it. Typically, pre-pandemic, a lot of times there'd be end of the year. They always have specials going on, but you see a big jump towards the end of the year. So that'd be December. And then most manufacturers have a fiscal year end, which is typically in the spring. So that's what you see in March. And that's when they usually push most of their inventory they have, especially if there's anything left over from previous year models. The difference is now there just is nothing left over either. So
got it. So a couple of good buying seasons. So Jason, that leads me to a question for you. Like if we are purchasing a vehicle over a holiday weekend, like a Christmas special or a New Year's special, do we have are we covered if we drive off the lot and haven't told you about our new vehicle purchase?
Well, that happens way more than you would think. And it really depends on the type of policy that you have. With American Family, for instance, because I can speak to their policies, there is a short grace period for existing customers where the coverage that you have on your currently insured vehicle will roll over to that new vehicle. So oftentimes you're going to be covered for a short time. We're talking anywhere from like 4 to 14 days, depending on your policy type and such, where that'll give you plenty of time to get in touch with your agent or go online and add the information for the new vehicle. So take the car, go for it, but just be sure to get in touch with your agent or your insurance company as soon as you can.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you for that. So, Joe, we've kind of hit on this some, but I want to revisit this again with, especially with the purchasing vehicles online. Can you explain just in a little bit more detail some of the pros and cons of purchasing that vehicle online versus coming into a dealership and getting a feel for it?
Sure. Well, the pros you probably see on the commercials they run. I mean, you can sit in your pajamas on your couch on a computer and hit buy now as you walk through. So that's one of the pros is it especially if you're someone that gets nervous or doesn't like to deal with people or go in, or you just feel like you don't want to be bothered with anything. You can do it right from your home. So one of the pros I would say going to the dealership is you're going to probably find out a lot more information that you wouldn't sitting on your couch. So one, touching the car. I'm kind of old school that way. If I'm spending that type of money, I like to see and touch what I'm buying before I hit buy now on it. But again, this is different times where everything you can get at your fingertip. I mean, my wife has Amazon boxes at our doorstep every day. So but mainly it's going to be, I've never purchased one from just online. You're looking at, if you want an experience and you have somebody to always turn to, the dealership would be a place to go, because that person too, as you go on after you purchase your car, will help you. You can call them, you can touch base with them. Versus buying it online, there's nothing direct there. You don't have a consultant. You might have like most products have, a phone number you can call, but is that person, I don't know if they come out to you. I don't know how long of a wait time that is on the phone with them. So there's pros and cons to both. It just, again, I think it's going to turn down to personal preference. I do like the fact that you can kind of do both, because like ours that we have online now, you can get to that point of finding the car you want, researching your payments, doing whatever, all through that buy it now platform, and then go in and actually find someone to work with and help you.
Great. And Jason, similar question to you. When it comes to an insurance policy, I know you touched on it earlier as well, but when it comes to an insurance policy, am I always paying more if I have an insurance agent versus going online? What are some of the pros and cons for choosing an insurance agent?
Sure. So no, not at all. I mean, it varies wildly depending on the type of company and the type of policy. The old adage is often true. You're going to get what you pay for. And if you want a super basic policy that doesn't have very much coverage, and you don't like to deal with people, and you don't necessarily care if you know everything about the policy, that makes my palm sweat just to think I'm buying something and I don't know all the details about it. But I know there are people out there that are okay with that. Online buying might be the way to go. And then there are other people that want to make sure that they have a professional advisor that is doing what's in their best interest. For instance, I don't like paying taxes. I do, but I don't like messing with taxes. I don't like having to calculate all that stuff. So I hire an accountant every year to do my taxes, and whatever they tell me I have to pay, then I write the check, and that's that. But I know that they're going to do a much better job because that's their career, that's their profession, and they are my professional tax advisor. So I pay for their services. In insurance, it's not always like that. Our agency frequently beats the price out for similar coverages when we're competing against online agencies. Not always, but oftentimes. So I guess it all goes back to personal preference.
Yeah, no, that's something great to weigh for both either purchasing a vehicle or purchasing car insurance of, do I want someone that I can talk to right away? Or do I just want to do this myself? And knowing the risk, of course, that come with doing it yourself as well. So we have one more question in the chat that we'll get to before we wrap up here. So Joe asked about just the future as it relates to infrastructure with electric and hybrid vehicles. So if you think about a Tesla is great for 300 miles, but if you have a trip that is 800 miles, what are you going to do? So Joe, any thoughts on electric vehicles, charging stations? Are we ready for that when it comes to long distance travels?
We're getting ready. So I'm sure you guys have all been reading everything or seeing by 2030, they want to have so many electric vehicles on the road. Nissan itself started out in, I think it was 2011 with the Leaf, which was the first economical electric vehicle you could purchase. It had a range. They said about 110 realistically. If you use it like a real car, it was about 80. Battery technology has come a long way since then. We have an Aria coming out that's going to have a range of just over 300. And you're going to see that on a lot more vehicles. Now, there is going to be a big switch over with infrastructure, and I think you're going to start to see more so charge stations that are going to be set up like rest areas, I would say, that might have restaurants there or do whatever. A lot of them now, like our Leaf, if you want to go 0 to 100%, it takes about 30 minutes to charge on a quick DC charger. Those are the ones that these type of charge stations are going to end up with. So it'll make it a little bit different when you're planning to travel. Obviously, you don't just stop at the pump and fill up within 5 minutes and take off. It'd probably take 30 minutes to do so. And as time goes on, it might take less and less as they go. But they're building these cars with a lot of cool technology in it. So I know like Teslas, I think you can play video games on or watch your Netflix if you want to while you're charging. You're going to see that a lot more in all these cars as they come out. And they're, with the battery technology coming forward, they're making them more affordable. So you're not going to need to spend $120,000 to have an electric vehicle to drive around. So it kind of is transitioning from, it was kind of a secondary vehicle, at least the Leaf was, like around here in Madison. It was great for going to and from work, getting groceries. You weren't going to take a 3-hour trip with it, to having these electric vehicles that you're going to be able to do so. You're going to be able to get to where you need to go and actually plug in and charge from there.
Very cool.
Hey, Katie, I wanted to add my 2 cents if that's okay. I know we're running really close on the time limit. My family personally, we've been an all electric household for going on 3 years now. And I echo what Joe was saying. It may make sense, it may not, but it's definitely based on your individual usage and how your household is set up. And when we sold our last gas-powered vehicle and went all electric, we were kind of nervous. We like to travel, we like to take road trips, and we're like, man, are we going to be able to do this? And we have been very pleasantly surprised. I can confidently say that the Lassen family won't ever own another gas-powered vehicle again. It works for our family. I also have friends that have tried it and it doesn't work as well for them. There are things to consider, of course. I've noticed that our electric vehicle range is cut considerably in cold weather. It could be cut 30, sometimes up to 50%. So I think one of the best things you can do is talk to your vehicle consultant, because again, they're professional advisors that do this for a living, and they see all the different vehicle types out there. And then there's groups online, like Joe brought up Tesla. I know there's a Tesla Owners of Wisconsin Facebook group that you could jump on and join and ask questions like that. And I'm certain there are for probably
almost everyone,
Leaf owners and Bolt owners and everything else. So simply put, if you're considering an EV, I encourage you to do some extra research and try it out. You might be pleasantly surprised like we were.
Oh, very cool. Well, and thanks for that firsthand experience there. So I know we're close on time here, but before we conclude, I just wanted to get any closing remarks from each of you. So Joe, we'll start with you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share in regards to the car buying experience? Any final tips that you can leave us with?
So mainly, I mean, go online, do your research, find a reputable dealer, and find a person that you like to deal with. So you can walk in and you should be able to know right away whether they care about what you are looking for. Obviously, figure out your needs versus your wants. So that's a big thing too when you're going to figure out your budget. Go through and be like, this is what I need to get through my day or get X, Y, Z, and gosh, it'd be nice if I could have this. So, and let your sales consultant know that. They'll probably ask you that too, and they might be able to help you find the perfect vehicle that fits all of them or most of them. Don't forget to budget in your insurance costs, your taxes, your fees, all that stuff when you're figuring out your payment. Again, $20 a month roughly on a 5-year loan for every $1,000 that you're financing. On leases, the other way around, every $1,000 you put down drops your payment about $30 a month if you're ever looking at a 0 down lease. And just figure out what's going to work best for you and your family or whoever you're with.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Jason, same question to you. Any closing remarks?
You know, just about all of us out there have some form of insurance. I mean, we're all familiar with the word insurance and overall what it does. But one thing that we often forget is that insurance is truly a trust-based business. It's a trust-based offering. And if you think about it, it's so unique because you have an insurance company, an insurance agent that's saying, hey, Katie, I tell you what, you give me some money, you give me money now, and I promise, I'll pinky swear, if anything happens that's in this list of things, bad things that could go wrong, I promise I'll give you money later on. And that's a lot of trust that you are laying out to somebody, to a company and to an agent, if you choose to use an agent. So my best bit of advice is find a system, a person, whatever it is that you trust. And for me personally, I like using professional advisors that are smarter than I am when it comes to whatever it is, legal, tax, cars, something else. And if you're the type of person that trusts yourself and trusts the computer for what you're buying, then maybe buying online is great. And if you're the person that likes to deal sometimes online, sometimes in person, then find an agent that you can do it, app-based or online or whatever. And if you're a person that just loves to text, then find an agent that is willing to text with you. So do what's best for you, but just remember that you need to deal with somebody that you trust. And if you're dealing with somebody now that you don't trust, then find somebody different that you do trust.
I love that. That's great advice for anything, especially as it relates to this conversation. So thank you so much to both of you. I will hand it back to Andy and Jake.
Thank you so much for that, Katie. And Jason, Joe, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights with us here today. To all of you who had tuned in, we thank you for joining us, and we look forward to continuing to learn, grow, and dream together. You can learn more about upcoming DreamBank events and content design with your dreams in mind at amfam.com/DreamBank and by connecting with us on our social channels. On behalf of American Family Insurance DreamBank, we look forward to hosting you again soon. Until then, keep dreaming fearlessly.